Episode 107. Thunder gently rolls through the sky. Cannon smoke on the flower-sweet air. Grab your hat. It's Gaspee Days. Greetings and welcome into the Pawtuxet General. I am your host, Jess. The village itself is very busy right now, the middle of Gaspee Days. So for more information about Gaspee events and the schedule, go to gaspee.com. With loads more Gaspee everything in their archives at gaspee.org. We have lots to chat about today, and it'll be parade day before you know it. So you're going to need the upcoming Gaspee tips and perhaps a few Bacon Cheddar Jalapeno Scones to fortify before, or to keep in your pocket as road food. Any hoot, I can't wait to get to that. But first, I must thank our Patreon subscribers. These folks from around the world are the thick underground cords that house the watts of power that travel across the poles, that dot the streets, power the engine that is the Pawtuxet General, without whom we would be stuck in traffic on 195. So thank you. You too can be one of these bastions of energy simply by following the link in the show notes. You may receive special one-of-a-kind gifts in the mail for a small monthly fee. You could look on our page at patreon.com for even more details. But until then, it's time for me to get this electric car rolling. First up, a Gaspee song. This discussion has been excerpted from Tales of the Old Seaport by Wilfred Harold Monroe, Princeton University Press, 1917. The burning of the Gaspee took place on June 20th, 1772. The only lyric to commemorate the affair came from the pen of Captain Thomas Swan of Bristol, one of those who partook in it. His effusion has never appeared in any history of American literature for good and sufficient reasons, but it is printed in full in Monroe's History of Bristol. In January 1881, Bishop Smith of Kentucky, born in Bristol in 1794 and a graduate of Brown in 1816, wrote to me calling my attention to a slight difference between the Swan song, as I had been given it in my History of Bristol, and a version pasted upon the back of the portrait of Thomas Swan's father by Thomas Swan himself. Captain Swan was Bishop Smith's uncle. The bishop wrote, "I should not have troubled you on so inconsiderable a point had not the tradition in our family been that the Bristol boat was manned by men in the disguise of Narragansett Indians." Bishop Smith penned these lines. Several men were living in Bristol who had heard the story from Captain Swan's own lips. He delighted in telling it and was accustomed to giving the names of Bristol participants. Those names have unhappily escaped the memory of his auditors. From the History of Bristol, Rhode Island, The Story of Mount Hope Lands by W. H. Monroe, Providence, 1860. The following song, composed at the time of the burning of the Gaspee, is attributed to Captain Thomas Swan of Bristol, one of the participants in the affair. 'Twas in the reign of George III, our public peace was much disturbed by ships of war that came and laid within our ports to stop our trade. 1772, in Newport Harbor, lay a crew that played the parts of pirates there. The sons of freedom could not bear. Sometimes they weighed and gave them chase. Such actions sure were very base. No honest coaster could pass by. What they would let some shot by, and did provoke to high degree those true-born sons of liberty, so they could no longer bear those sons of Belial staying there. But 'twas not long, for it fell out that William Dunningston, so stout, commander of the Gaspee tender, which he has reason to remember, because, as people do assert, he almost had his just desert here on the 10th day of last June, betwixt the hours of 12 and 1, did chase the sloop called the Hannah, of whom one Lindsay was commander. They dogged her up the Providence Sound, and there the rascal got aground. The news of it flew that very day, that they on Namquid Point did lay. That night after 10:30, some Narragansett Indian men, being 64 if I remember, which made the stout coxcombs surrender, and what was best of all their trick, they in his breech a ball did fix. Then set the men upon the land, and burned her up, we understand, which thing provoked the king so high, he said those men shall surely die. So if he could but find them out, the hangman he'll employ no doubt, for he's declared in his passion he'll have them tried a new fashion. Now, for to find these people out, King George was offered very stout £1,000 to outfind one that wounded William Dunningston. 1,000 more he says he'll spare for those who say sheriffs were. 1,000 more he doth remain to find out the leader's name. Likewise £500 per man for any one of all the clan. But let him try his utmost skill, I'm apt to think he never will find out any of those hearts of gold, though he should try offer 50-fold. Of the author of this song, Judge Staples says in his documentary History of the Destruction of the Gaspee, he richly deserves the thanks not only of his contemporaries, but of posterity, not so much for the sweet poetry of his song, as for the ballad shape in which he invested the transaction. Undoubtedly some tune was found in time to match it, notwithstanding the limping gait of some of the stanzas, and as it was sung in the circle of boon companions, they recalled the light of the burning Gaspee to their recollection, and hailing it as being what subsequent events have shown it to be, the dawning light of freedom, whose midday effulgence has now overspread the land. Bacon Cheddar Jalapeno Scones in a hole. This scone is the second most popular of all the scones that I make, perfect for a Gaspee breakfast. A great deal of work goes into making Gaspee fun for visitors and locals alike, and the Gaspee Day Committee tirelessly and lovingly knocks it out of the park every year. Memorial Day weekend brings the Arts and Crafts Festival to Pawtuxet Village and all of us. Those who live in the village have much to prepare. All that grass cutting, house trimming, extra shopping and baking can tire a person out. Sometimes you need something to stick to your ribs like I did this morning. Lucky for me, the day before I had made these scones so that we could have bacon cheddar jalapeno scones in a hole. To be fair, the other half of the Pawtuxet General team had the idea and pure guts to try it out this morning. I just made the scones. I talked about these scones once before, but recently I have had a bunch of practice making them. So let's go through it and then chat about today's changes. For this hearty recipe, you will need 1.5 pounds crispy bacon, 3 cups shredded cheddar, 5 1/4-inch square chopped ribbed and seeded jalapenos, 6 cups flour of your choice, the harder the better, 1 cup of cold unsalted butter in 1-inch cubes, 1.5 cup coarse cornmeal, 1 teaspoon cracked red pepper flakes, 4 teaspoons baking powder, 3 teaspoons baking soda, and 1/2 cup sugar. For the wet mix, you will need 4 eggs, beaten in the 4-cup measure, 1.5 cup yogurt, and 2 cups of milk approximately. This is the reason for the 4-cup measure. Eggs come in all shapes and sizes, especially from the farmer's market, which are amazing in this recipe. No matter what, you don't want to put in more than 4 cups. So originally I used skim milk yogurt in scones. Now it's much easier to get low-fat Greek yogurt. Combine all the dry ingredients, then with gloved hands, go through and gently crush the butter cubes until you don't find any cubes with your fingertips. At this point, add 3/4 of your wet mix to your dry evenly. Then gently turn over with a spatula. If there are still some sizable spots of dryness, add the rest of your wet mix. Turn over once and scoop with a large scoop. If it is difficult to pull, you have done it right. When overmixed, it scoops easily and bakes out tough. I'm going for soft on the inside with a crumb that holds on so that it's easy to break apart. It should have a little crunch on the bottom and a solid golden shiny top. After you scoop your scones, top with 1 beaten egg and bake at 400 degrees until they are fully risen and lightly golden with bounce back in the middle. About 15 minutes. Now you have the scones. This is a bunch to be sure, but they are perfect just the way they are, and I usually take them just that way. To gild the lily, you might slice off the top, cut an inch or two hole in the middle for the egg, then, with butter, grill it cut side down until golden. Then turn it over and crack the egg into the middle. Cook only a minute or two to make sure that your egg is still a little runny. Then serve with a wee circle of scone to dip into your egg at the top. You might even top this all off with hollandaise sauce and enjoy the beginning of Gaspee Days and the summer season. I want to tell you about my friend Mike and his electromagnetic pinball museum and restoration arcade. It's an all-inclusive place to relax and share anything related to modern pinball and arcade games. A group of pinball and arcade fans with an addiction to games of all kinds and Lego too. $10 gets you free play on pinball and arcade games all day. You can find them at 881 Main Street, Pawtucket, Rhode Island, or online at www.electromagneticpinballmuseum.com. This week here at the General, we had the opportunity, after the hectic Saturday schedule, to observe the arts and crafts scene from above the hub. We saw lots of folks getting frustrated, so we decided to share some Gaspee tips and tricks just to make your time in our little town more enjoyable. Number 1, right off the bat, come early. Parking can be difficult, which brings us to number 2. The best parking idea, if you have folks that don't or can't walk a good way, is to drop them off and park a few blocks away. Our streets are slim, and during events, parking is restricted on most connecting streets. Handicap parking is available at the Asprey Boathouse parking lot, but it fills up quickly, so early birds catch the parking spot. Bring cash and cards. Vendors could always use cash, and it keeps you on a budget, but bring cards as well. The restaurants here are really worth the trip. Number 4, of course, you will want to check the schedule of events. These folks work very hard to keep things on time, and you definitely don't want to miss your favorite parts. Next, make sure to fully charge your phones. Often vendors accept Apple Pay, and the picture opportunities are frequent and numerous. Number 6, be prepared to walk. Comfy shoes are the order of the day. We are a small town, but the miles add up quickly when you are having fun. Number 7, we've already talked about parking, but especially when bringing your fur babies with you, it is important to recognize that there may be loud noises or black powder gunfire or cannon fire at some of these events. It would be prudent to make your car a little oasis away from the chaos. Pack water, ponchos for cloudburst, snacks, and first aid kits for people and pets. That way, you can roll with whatever happens and still not get stuck if there are bumps in your Gaspee road. And finally, it would be the perfect time to check out the spots around town that I've spoken about in past episodes. Like Episode 6, where we talk about Joe Kerwin's farm, or Episode 38 in Pawtuxet Park, or Episode 41, the Edgewood Yacht Club, or Episode 61, the History of the Gaspee, or Episode 78, Seaview Terrace, or for more spooky-minded episodes, 63 and 69. Some of these you could use as your own personal ghost tour, not to mention the house on the corner itself, which I talk about in the first dozen episodes or so, is there in Edgewood proper. somewhere if you follow the clues. That said, you will not find me there or any bit of the general, but if you walk past, you may find a chill or a sense of being watched from those high windows. And that's been your quick Gaspee update. Stay tuned for another one soon to follow. And thank you once again for joining us today at the Pawtuxet General. We here raise a glass to all of you constant listeners wherever you are and wish you a little peace in this quickly changing world. Cheers! If you have a question, comment, order for pickup at the farmer's market, or a local ghost story, our email is jess@pawtuxetgeneral.com. So drop us a line. We can't wait to hear from you, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. But until then, I'll meet you right back here next time at the Pawtuxet General. A Something for Posterity production, pre-recorded in Pawtuxet.